Hello there. I'm gonna interview my grandma, Linda, for an oration project.
History.
History project.
She has chosen to talk
She
about
has chosen to talk about JFK. Where were you when JFK happened?
When JFK was killed, I was in class in my third grade class in Libertyville, Illinois.
How old were you?
I must have been about 8 because I was in third grade.
Can you tell me how you felt?
Back then, we didn't stop school for anything. And I can remember that the teacher came in and told us what had happened. And she told us all that school was over and we were to go home. And I remember walking home and the wind was blowing and there were trash cans rolling around and I was scared because I never got to go home in the middle of the day like that from school. And I knew it had to be something very important that had happened because they sent us home from school.
Did things change in the country because of his assassination?
I was kind of young to know what kinds of things changed, but I will tell you from my standpoint as a child, watching television, his assassination was covered 24/7 on the television for about a week. And so there was no other programming. My normal kid programs that I used to watch as a child were taken off the television, and it was total news about the assassination for about a week, and so I knew it had to be really important.
Did his assassination make people more afraid of the Cold War?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine yes. I know that after he was assassinated.
Hello, I am gonna interview my Pop Belial, and on about the Sputnik, about what he knows. Were you disappointed in American scientists when you found that Russians had successfully launched a satellite into space?
So I was younger when it happened, but it was known as the space race. There was a race between the scientists with the Soviet Union and the Americans, and there was a race to see who could get satellites into space first. And so the Soviet Union won the space race when they launched Sputnik, and so it was a great disappointment to the American scientists and space exploration at the time.
Do you remember watching the news about Sputnik?
Yes, I do. They had renditions of what Sputnik looked like and how it orbited the Earth, and the concerns that they had about what could develop as a result of the Soviet Union launching Sputnik.
Did you have fears about how Sputnik would spy on Americans?
Yes, there were fears about the Soviet Union being able to develop satellites that would spy on American military assets and what they could do in terms of offensive weapons against the Americans.
If you were a child, did you play astronauts after the launch of Sputnik?
Yes, we used to climb up on the fence and try to jump up onto the moon, but sadly gravity took over and we crashed on the ground.
Hi, this is my grandma Linda, and I'm gonna interview her on what she knows about terror on the airline. So let's get started. Did you find this on the Did you find this on TV or did you hear it on radio?
I heard about this on both TV and the radio.
After this, were you afraid to fly?
Yes, I was very much afraid to fly. I had to go to a wedding in Arizona, and that's not a long flight from Salt Lake to Phoenix, but I had our oldest daughter, Mary, when she was a baby with me, and I was just terrified that at some point she would start screaming and there would be a terrorist there and he would have a gun pointed on us and he would tell me, "Shut her up or I'll shoot you." And I just kept having that nightmare. Nothing like that happened, but I seriously thought it would.
Did the airlines change policies to make the airlines safer?
Yes, they started checking people and started doing more on the airline security.
So before then, you didn't have any airline security.
Hi, this is my grandpa Jerry, and I'm gonna interview him on what he knows about Berlin. What do you know about Berlin?
That wasn't on the question. Okay. Well, we had the early 50s. Berlin was right up in the middle of the Soviet-held part of Germany. And there was just a very single road that went all the way through, whole bunches of miles to get to Berlin. And then Russia cut that road off. And they figured they had us in a corner. And it was an experiment with the US. We saw if we could keep a large city going with only air support. And they just started around the clock jets coming in and dropping off food and all the necessary items that you need to survive in a city.
This is my grandpa Jerry again, and he's gonna and I'm gonna interview questions on, and I'm gonna interview him on what he knows on what he knows about the H-bomb this time. Okay, let's get started. How did you feel about the H-bomb?
Well, it's very scary. When I was a child, we thought it was great that America had it. Go ahead.
Were you worried that the USSR was going to blow up America?
Of course. I never expected to ever become an adult. I expected that at any time there was going to be a thermonuclear war, and us and all the Russians would be killed.
How old were you when the first H-bomb was invented?
6.
How did you feel about the H-bomb?
Well, it's very scary. When I was a child, we thought it was great that America had it. Go ahead.
Were you worried that the USSR was going to blow up America?
Of course. I never expected to ever become an adult. I expected that at any time there was going to be a thermonuclear war, and us and all the Russians would be killed.
How old were you when the first H-bomb was invented?
6.
Do you think that the H-bomb is a good thing to be developed?
I think it was a horrible thing to be